Hello. I can't hear you yet. If you're speaking to me, I can't hear you, dear. You need to do something, or I think I've got everything turned on properly here.
I have it muted. I was just speaking to my mother-in-law who's joining us for class tonight.
I got it. Okay, very good.
Thank you for checking.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Brother Shankara. Namaste.
Everybody.
Namaste.
Hello.
Namaste.
Hello, Prabha.
Namaste.
Hey, Mima.
Hi, how are you?
Families meeting by Zoom. How wonderful. I think I just saw Brahmadas join us. I see his window there.
My glary window.
Glary window, yeah. I haven't got my phone in here to be a watch. So could somebody alert me when it's 8:45? Just give me a heads up when it's 8:45.
Okay.
I can do that. All right, you got it, Jaime.
Thank you, Brahmadas.
All right.
Hello, Brother Shankara.
Hello, Keith. Is that Keith? It was Keith?
Yes, sir, it's me.
Okay, and hello, Aaron. Hello, Catherine. I think Ashley's with us. Very good, very good. Like I say, without my clock.
Brother Shankara,
Hello there, Naveen.
how are you?
Good, good. Namaste. Good, good to
Namaste.
see both of your sweet faces.
Let's see.
Nice.
Hey.
Cindy's with us.
Hi.
Okay, as usual, we'll wait just a couple of minutes. When I just checked, it was just 8 o'clock. So. I think that's Jim Garvine there.
Now, I promised Swami Harinamanand I would attend his 6 p.m. lecture, which is 9 p.m. our time, so I'll be cutting out at 9 p.m. tonight.
All righty. Well, you just give me a heads up at 8:45, and your
I can do
job
that.
will be done. So.
How you been doing, Brother Shankara?
I've been doing reasonably well, Jim. Thanks for asking.
Good.
You know, the health. I had a very nice conversation with my doctor yesterday morning. Things are definitely on the right road, and he adjusted my meds, but that was the extent of it. No big deal.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we will begin. Oh. Sahana Bhavatu, Sahano Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavaditamastu, Mavidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. So, if you remember, and I'm sure you do, that Krishna is answering Arjuna's question. My mind is confused, Arjuna said. You seem to tell me that, about all these lofty ideas, and yet at the same time you tell me to go out and do these terrible deeds. Which is it? Straighten me out. And so Krishna is answering, and he's gotten to one of the three key ideas. You can say there are many, many wonderful ideas in the Gita, but there are three really prime ideas. And one is that Brahman is the reality. The second is that we have the sense that we are a separate being, and this is a delusion, that there is only one ahamkara, only one I maker, only one I, and that our sense of self is a reflection in this apparent reality that was created by the desire of Brahman to be many. I am one, I shall become many. The third is that when we turn our attention to the divine, when we commit ourselves to the divine, that it does not matter who or what we have been in the past. Nothing of that is of any significance whatsoever. As Krishna says, holiness itself will transform you into a person of knowledge and joy and freedom. So those are the three key ideas that we need to just keep in mind as we live and as we study all of this. Brahman alone is the reality. Our sense of separation is a delusion. And when we do turn ourselves toward the pursuit of wisdom, knowledge of Brahman, it does not matter one iota who or what we have been in the past. There's nothing to brood about, nothing to think about. Of course, all of that will come up as we do our spiritual practices and contemplation, concentration, and meditation. But it's immaterial. We can discriminate against it. We can say, yes, yes, I see you, I hear you, I know who you are, but I am turning my attention elsewhere. And we do that with resolution and devotion. And Krishna says, I see no sinner. Holiness itself shall transform you, will transform you. So to go ahead with chapter 3, which is very much about one of these three key ideas. We talked about the gunas, so if anybody still has a question about the gunas, please just interrupt. But this is we're going to talk now about the gunas. Every action is really performed by the gunas. Man, human beings, deluded by their egotism. What's egotism? Egotism is this sense of separation, this sense that somehow I am apart from everything else, And furthermore, that I need to be selfish and take care of myself. I need to be self-centered rather than centered in my spiritual self. So that's egotism. Every action is really performed by the gunas. Man, human beings, deluded by their egotism, think, I am the doer. But he who has the true insight into the operation of the gunas and their various functions knows that when senses attach themselves to objects, in other words, when we see, feel, perceive, remember, project, this is all the gunas attaching themselves to objects. That the person with insight knows that when senses attach themselves to objects, gunas are merely attaching themselves to gunas. Now, as I said before, when we were talking about this, there is a very elaborate system, equally elaborate to our modern chemistry and even partially physics, called Sankhya, which means counting or enumeration. And it says what all of these functions are and what's happening when minute portions of one guna plus this portion of the second guna and this portion of the third guna manifest themselves and attach themselves to something else and form that compound. And it's very elaborate, very detailed, and it's something that you can study if you like, but probably best to take Krishna's word for it. It's a long and complicated study, and probably doesn't lead you any closer to God realization. It was Krishna's attempt in an earlier age to give human beings whose left minds were becoming more prominent and their prefrontal cortex was becoming more prominent, give them a rational explanation for what they were seeing. Rational being left mind and prefrontal cortex centered. Gunas are merely attaching themselves to gunas. Knowing this, he does not become attached to his actions. If you're not the doer of your actions, if you really can manage to hold this idea, I am not the doer of my actions. I am the witness of the gunas performing these actions. Therefore, there's no reason whatsoever for me to be attached to them. I will have a provisional and efficient, practical attachment to my duty and doing my duty, but it's not any way a deep or self-centered attachment. It's simply a way of being in the world and doing what needs to be done. The illumined soul must not create confusion in the minds of the ignorant by refraining from work. In other words, just because you're not the doer doesn't mean you're not going to do anything. So you don't refrain from work. You continue to do your duty. You continue to perform your actions. The ignorant, in their delusion, identify the Atman with the gunas. They become tied to the senses and the actions of the senses. Shake off this fever of ignorance. Now, this is deeply an answer to Arjuna's question. He's saying, straighten me out here. And Krishna is saying, these things that you think are terrible deeds and so on are just the gunas attaching themselves to gunas. So do not think of yourself as the one who does them or who has the either the responsibility for or the reward or punishment of the results, win or lose. Now, does that mean that when Arjuna wins and Yudhishthira becomes king, that they don't do their jobs? No, they continue to do their jobs. But it is not, if Arjuna properly understands, he does it as a witness. Shake off this fever of ignorance. Stop hoping for worldly rewards. In other words, stop being self-centered. Change your centeredness to what? Fix your mind on the Atman. The Atman and Brahman are equivalent terms. Atman is that which is active in the world, active in universe. It as Krishna explains in chapter 5, it is the Atman doing this through the instrumentality of the gunas for its own purposes and thereby sanctions our actions. So fix your mind on the Atman. Shake off this fever of ignorance. Stop hoping for worldly rewards. Fix your mind on the Atman. Be free from the sense of ego, from that sense of self. Be free from the sense that I am a separate being. No, I am the witness, which is an instrumentality of the Atman. I am the witness, witnessing that which I have created for my own purposes. And now, a very potent instruction that is something that you can actually do from the time you wake up in the morning until you put your head on the pillow at night. Dedicate all your actions to me. Who is me? Krishna is not speaking as a human being. He's speaking as the divine person, as that water still, water and waves, same water. Water still is Brahman. Water and waves is the manifest universe ruled over by the one who is speaking here as me. So the instruction is, since all of these actions are not yours to start with, dedicate them all to me. I've said earlier, I'm doing it all anyway. In chapter 2, he said that. Dedicate all your actions to me. Then go forward and fight. So now he's answered the question about the terrible deeds. Then go forward and fight. And of course, the instruction to us is we have our own fight to fight. This whole Gita is in the Kurukshetra war and the Kurus and the Pandavas and all of that are in a grand sense a metaphor for our internal struggle to overcome Maya. She is not called Mahamaya for nothing. She has a whole army of appearances and ways of being that are that help us continue in our delusion and in our ignorance. So that's what we're fighting. That's what we're fighting against. But these two sentences are just so potent. It's something that you can actually do when you get up in the morning. Oh, beloved, whatever you, however you address the object of your, the center of your spiritual pursuit, your chosen ideal, however you address that chosen ideal. Oh, beloved, this day and all it contains is offered to you. And then you can list for yourself and for the purposes of the prayer, whatever you think the day contains. In general terms, in specific terms, whatever pleases you. And then when you take a bath, the bath is dedicated. When you drink a cup of tea or coffee, that is offered, is dedicated. Just slowly and slowly, you accustom your mind to offering everything that you are and do to the divine. then go forward and fight. And when you are when you are fighting in that spirit, you'll find it's a very different kind of fight, because you are not attached. You are not attached. You've given the action and the results to the divine. And then here's one of these huge promises that Krishna makes. He's given some instructions. If a man keeps following my teaching with faith in his heart, and he does not make mental reservations, he will be released from the bondage of his karma. Now, can you imagine? We hear about prarabdha karma and this kind of karma and that kind of karma. This is a kind of bondage for the body-mind complex. Krishna says that person will be released from the bondage of his karma. Holy Mother, Sri Sharada Devi, in a series of promises she made, absolutely underlines this. Her disciple asked her, well, Mother, if I do what you say, which parallels what Krishna said here, a little different, but parallel, does that mean that my karma won't manifest? And Mother said, well, if you were to receive a wound as big as a plowshare, that will not happen. And the disciple says, but so nothing will happen? And Mother says, no, you'll receive a pinprick. So we all wish to escape pain and suffering. This is one of those absolutely momentous promises that Krishna makes. Do this and you will be released from the bondage of your karma. Now, let's just go back and see what the conditions are. If a person keeps following my teachings with faith in his or her heart, and this is really the key, you can't hedge your bets. You can't say, well, I'll do this, but, I'll still, make sure that I'm well provisioned, that I'm taking care of myself. There's all these sayings, trust Allah, but keep your camel tied to a post. Well, it doesn't mean you don't keep your camel tied to the post. The camel might wander away, no doubt. But you don't do it in a self-interested way. You do it for the camel's sake. So you don't make mental reservations. This is tricky. Every one of us has to really ponder on this for what it means for us. If you follow my teachings with faith in your heart and do not make mental reservations, you will be released from the bondage of your karma. This is such a key idea of chapter 3. But, Krishna says, but those who scorn my teachings and do not follow it are lost. What does that mean, lost? Simply means they'll go forward on the hamster wheel of life, continuing to do just as they've done, making some small progress, no doubt, but at the end, they'll simply lose that body, and by the fact that they are still, the momentum of their life is not toward Brahman or toward realization, they will be forced to take a new body. This is what we're told. So if they don't follow me, they're lost in that sense. They are without spiritual discrimination. All their knowledge is a delusion. And this is the thing that's hard for us to admit and assimilate, that the way we're living, unless we're living the way Krishna recommends, or some parallel to it from some other tradition, Jesus had his teachings, Buddha had his teachings, they all lead to realization. But unless you're following that, you're living a life of delusion, in Sanskrit, samsara, suffering. So I think this is a good place to pause and see if there are any questions or comments about what's been said so far. This is absolutely foundational, what we've been discussing. So is there anything that you'd like to say or ask?
When he said, dedicate all your actions to me, then go forward and fight, the first thing that came to my mind was the sniper in Saving Private Ryan. If you've ever seen that movie, he kind of dedicates all his actions to God, and he does horrible stuff, but it's the way he is.
Well,
He's,
I haven't seen it, but he's doing the right thing. If it's the way for him to prevent himself, or at least help that he won't be given PTSD. If he takes that attitude truly, if he does that without reservation. Good thought, Brad.
and to say, if a man keeps following my teachings and does not make reservations, he will be released from the bondage of his karma. That's a pretty big promise. It almost sounds like even if he's led an evil life, he's going to be released from that bondage. If he
Later in the Gita, he says that explicitly. Doesn't matter what you've done. I see no evil. If you turn toward me with devotion and commitment, I see no evil. Holiness itself will transform you. So yes, it is a huge promise. And it is the same promise that is in Jesus's parable of the prodigal child. The exact same promise. And it's very explicit in Jesus's parable what happens when the prodigal son returns home in humility, saying, please let me be your servant. I'm not worthy to be your son anymore. And his father says, what are you saying? My son has come home. Bring him the finest robe. Bring him the family signet ring. Bring him the finest sandals. Kill the fatted calf. My son has come home. This is how God exalts. This is what the saints tell us. And I'm telling you, they do say that over and over. The saints from all the traditions as are represented in that book, Love Poems from God. We just don't have any grasp of the love of God for us, according to what they tell us. But that we get a glimpse in the parable of the prodigal child. And Krishna is very explicit about it.
And one final question. When he says, fix your mind on the Atman, how do you define Atman here?
Atman and Brahman are the same. Atman is the
okay.
operative principle. Brahman, active in universe, is Atman. There's Brahman beyond manifestation, is actionless and absolutely inconceivable to the mind. We can, beyond thought and speech. And the peace of Brahman, the knowledge of Brahman, is the peace that Jesus was speaking of when he said the peace that passeth all understanding. What is understanding? Something that has a conceptual or speech basis. So Atman is the active principle, active in universe. And when we get to chapter 5, Krishna explains in some detail what he means by the Atman and how the Atman is the one that is actually doing all this through the instrumentality of the gunas.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, Haima.
I just want to clarify a few things for all of us. It's even though if a person had done wrong things in the past, if he or she turns towards God, what you said, from that time onwards, the transformation, transcendence happens towards the divinity. That is when they have to continue to do it rest of their life to get that.
Yes, and it becomes easier and easier.
Yes,
It happens slowly and slowly.
slowly and slowly.
First it comes as a mental commitment.
Mhm.
We take a stand for it, is the way I put it. We take a stand for it and say, this is, I'm going to believe without reservation what Krishna has said. And so I'm going to behave in that way. I'm going to actually do what he says, dedicate everything to me.
Yes. Then he will be relieved from the bondage of karma.
Right.
That's what Yes.
But it doesn't happen immediately.
Exactly.
As he says later in the Gita, holiness itself will transform you. Very few have it happen to them, like the story of Scrooge in A Christmas Carol, overnight.
That's right. Yes.
But it does happen. And Swami Prabhavananda, Swami Swahananda, Swami Sarvadevananda, they all underline this. And Sri Dharananda, Swami Sri Dharananda is the beloved Swami that's in Australia and New Zealand now, works there in Australia and New Zealand. He intones that phrase so beautifully. Slowly and slowly, my dears. It happens slowly and slowly. You must be patient. So we keep it. We didn't gain these habits, these samskaras, these vasanas overnight. They're the product of, if we're to believe what Swami Vivekananda says in the lectures he gave in London that are in the book Jnana Yoga, it took us eons to come to what we are now. So we go forward from here, but we have the power of the divine person as assistance, as it was put in, I think it was in the mother study class the other night. If you take one step toward God, God takes 100 steps toward you. Anything else from anyone? Okay.
Yeah, Brother Shankara, sorry.
Yes, dear.
I was muted. So actually, this question came up when I was reviewing my notes of Karma Yoga class from Athens class.
Yes.
I had written something down, right? Don't make mental reservations. Don't hedge your bet. That's not the same as mechanically offering all. It's okay to be mechanical, but not okay to have mental reservations. Can you differentiate between mental reservations and mechanical offering?
When we start, it's hard to have our full heart behind it. It's not a typical thing for us to do. It's a whole other way of thinking and being. It's a real adjustment to our way of doing. So in the beginning, when we say some words, mother, whoever you're addressing as the divine being, I offer this day to you, and so on. It takes a while for the correspondence in your heart to be felt. And when the correspondence in your heart is felt, then it changes from mechanical to relational. You are actually in relation with the divine person, and you are speaking to them. In the beginning, you're, so to speak, knocking on the door, opening the door and speaking into a room where you don't know who is in that room. You have some hazy idea based on what your guru told you or what you read in books and so on about the divine being, most of which is unassimilated because it's a process of assimilation. So you're speaking into this room, hoping there's someone there, trusting there's someone there, believing there's someone there, not having reservations about it. but it isn't yet heartfelt. Then after a time, if you complete this process day in and day out, and the more you do it during the day, thinking, okay, this cup of tea, this biscuit that I'm going to eat, everything I do, I dedicate the taking of that. And as Krishna says, or said earlier, if you don't dedicate the food that you eat, the food that you cook, and the food that you eat, and the liquids that you take, if you don't dedicate them to the devas through the instrumentality of your divine, the divine presence, your chosen ideal, if you don't do that, you're stealing from the devas. Now the devas don't retaliate, but you just won't have a relationship that you would have had otherwise. Something is lacking. So you start out mechanically, and then as you persist, something happens, and you begin to feel a response. You begin to feel the voice, so to speak, coming from the room. Ah, yes, and for each one of us, it will be different. It's not like there's a cookie cutter. It's not like there's a formula. As Vivekananda said, all of these are secondary details in their formality. The intention is not a secondary detail. It is the use of these instructions in the way they're intended to be used. Very good question. Swami, very good question. Anything else?
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Okay. Now, this is Krishna. This next is Krishna acknowledging the difficulties, acknowledging that what he's given us to do is not easy. Even a wise man or woman, even a wise person, acts according to the tendencies of their own nature. All living creatures follow their tendencies. So Krishna is acknowledging that the gunas have created tendencies in us, and it is our nature to follow those tendencies. Some people tend to be musical by nature, so they're going to be attracted to performing and doing music. Some people are verbal by nature, so they're going to, from a very early age, be attracted to things that are verbal, conceptual, all that kind of thing. So you're going to follow your tendencies. So, and it's very important that we acknowledge and accept those tendencies. This is how we are created. We are one tiny facet of this illimitably huge gem called Brahman. We are a facet of that. We're not separate, we're part of it, but we are an individual facet. We are unique. I mean, the extremes are very easy to identify. A Mozart, a Shakespeare, an Einstein. You can see these people just glow brilliantly. Well, each of us glows too, but we oftentimes are in denial, and sometimes even we accuse ourselves of wanting to follow our tendencies. Krishna says it's not a good idea. All living creatures follow their tendencies. What use is any external restraint? The attraction and aversion which the senses feel for different objects are natural. but you must not give way to such feelings. They are obstacles. So how do you deal with them? You observe them and accept them. And of course, you know, if you're wise, you're going to do something like the yamas and niyamas of Patanjali, so that slowly and slowly you transform your life. And one of the ways is following Krishna's instructions as he just gave them. You transform your life from being self-centered to being centered in the divine. So those senses, the fact that the senses feel attraction and aversion to different objects are natural, but you must not give way to such feelings. They are obstacles. It is better to do your own duty, which you must discern. It is better to do your own duty, however imperfectly, than to assume the duties of another person, however successfully. Now, this is again one of these koans that Krishna has in the Gita. What are my duties? What is it that's right for me to do? Well, we learn this through introspection, through contemplation, concentration, and meditation. We see, oh yes, I feel this momentum. This is what brought me into this life. Let me be and do that. And it's very hard sometimes in the face of family, friends, society at large, to be self-determined in that way. They'll have their own ideas about you and about what you should do and who you should be. But you must be self-determined and say no, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that I feel that I came to do. And sometimes you come to it a good deal later in life, you know. So what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You then make the changes that you need to make to actualize what you really want and feel like is the important thing for you to do, rather than continuing to do the duties of some other way of being, some other person, however successfully. Prefer to die doing your own duty. The duty of another will bring you to great spiritual danger. Why? Because it deepens your delusion. It deepens your delusion. If you think that you need to do, you know, oh, well, I think you can all come up with instances in your own life without me elaborating on this, about life itself, other people trying to persuade you to this and that, when it just doesn't feel comfortable to you at all. To actually do what they say means you are bending the truth, bending your own truth, and so distorting your reality and having to adopt upadhis, self-descriptions and coverings for the truth that will be later hard to be rid of. So prefer to die doing your own duty. The duty of another will bring you into great spiritual danger. This prefer to die, because we place such value on these action and experience suits that we inhabit, these stardust spacesuits, we think it's bad to die. It's not bad to die. Prefer to die doing your own duty. So there are people right now, I mean, this very instant, who are risking their lives because they feel it is, and they've committed their lives to it. They're medical professionals. They are risking their lives, and many are dying of this coronavirus because they are doing their duty. Rather than shrinking away from their duty, they're doing it. And so they're losing their bodies, and according to the scriptures, this will only be to their great benefit. Arjuna. Arjuna has been listening to all this, and what's his response? Krishna, what is it that makes a man do evil, even against his own will, under compulsion, as it were? Now, we can only imagine what's in Arjuna's mind, but he may still be thinking about those he is having to fight. They have done great evil to him. But it is a great question in a general sense. What makes a man do evil, even against his own will, under compulsion, as it were? And we all know how that is and how that feels. Sri Krishna goes right to the gunas. The Rajoguna, Rajas, the Rajoguna has two faces, rage and lust. The ravenous, the deadly. Rage, ravenous, the deadly. Lust, these two are ravenous and deadly. Recognize these. They are your enemies. Smoke hides fire. Dust hides a mirror. The womb hides the embryo. By lust, the Atman is hidden. So what is lust? It's that outward reaching tendency to the objects of the world. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says in the very beginning of his prayer, it's his prescription for how to be free. Chant the name of the Lord and his glory unceasingly, that the mirror of the heart may be wiped clean of the dust that Krishna just spoke of, that the mirror of the heart may be wiped clean and quenched that mighty forest fire, worldly lust, raging furiously within. So cleaning the mirror of the heart, the fourth chakra, the fourth plane, and subduing the raging tendency, raging outward tendency of its connection with all of the senses, both subtle and gross, of the third chakra. By lust, the Atman is hidden. Lust hides the Atman in its hungry flames. This is the hungry flames of Rajoguna, Rajas. Lust hides the Atman in its hungry flames. The wise man's
faithful foe.
Oh, thank you. The lust hides the Atman in its hungry flames, the wise man's faithful foe. Intellect, senses, and mind are fuel to its fire. Now, this is something for us to keep very much in mind. The instrumentalities of this Stardust spacesuit are action and experience suit. We're very blessed to inhabit it. But intellect, senses, and mind, that is the part of us that transmigrates the subtle body. Intellect, senses, and mind are fuel to its fire. Thus it deludes the dweller in the body, bewildering his judgment.
It's 8:45, Brother Shankara.
Thank you. I'm going to read just a little more and then we'll go back to discussion. So, intellect, senses, and mind are fuel to the Rajoguna's fire. Thus it deludes the dweller in the body, bewildering in its judgment. The Rajoguna, Rajas, is known as the projecting power. Tamas is the concealing power. It's more, it isn't as evident to us because it is just kind of in the background. Inertia, stubbornness. But the aspects of the Rajoguna, they're very evident to us. Lust, passion, anger, righteous indignation, all of these things, they may lead us to good things, but we have to be very careful, as Vivekananda said. You have to really think, if I'm trying to be a reformer, why is it that I want to do these reforms? Will I really make things better? And am I doing this for the world or for, in some subtle sense, myself? Therefore, Arjuna, you must first control your senses, then kill this evil thing which obstructs discriminative knowledge and realization of the Atman. Kill the Rajoguna. How do we kill the Rajoguna? We don't do it with a sword. We don't do it with poison. We do it with love. We do it by emphasis on the Sattva Guna, the revealing power. We do that which manifests Sattva in us, and therefore we kill the power of the Rajoguna. This is if you look with discernment at the yamas and niyamas of Patanjali, this is exactly what happens. The Rajoguna leads us to self-centeredness and an adversarial relationship with the world. The niyamas, the observances of Patanjali, lead us to discriminative knowledge and realization of the Atman. So we'll leave it there and start next week with the senses are said to be higher than the sense objects. So let's have the wonderful part of this meeting now. This is where we study together the art of spirituality. What has this given rise to in you? What comments or questions would you like to make and share with the other people? I mean, there's a number of us here. There's 4 by 3, 12, at least 14, maybe 15, 16, depending on whether there's a couple of people in some of these windows. So this is a wonderful group. Let's what does this give rise to you in you? And what would you like to share with us?
This is Keith, Brother Shankara.
Yes, Keith.
I really just love the idea of you dedicating everything you do to Brahman, because eventually it will, that along with your practice, it's a cooperative, and you get to slowly break down. It seems to me that if you're doing that consistently, even though there is no evil, you will more likely lean to your higher self.
Absolutely. This is the way Swami Sridharananda put it. In the beginning, we have the sense of, and we know, I am. When our spiritual nature awakens, we get this sense, I am, and he or she, Ishvara or Ishwari, or whatever name you choose to use for the divine being, I am and he or she is. After a while, when you develop this relationship through this offering of yourself and your actions and all you are and do, you get a sense of the vastness of that which you are offering to. And I mean, when it becomes relational and you begin to have this sense of the vastness, it fills you. And so, as he says, I am and he or she is flips, and it becomes he or she is and I am. And then ultimately, you understand first in the sense of I am a part, and then ultimately there is no distinction at all. There just is that. And so you go from I am to I am and he or she is, to he or she is and I am, to finally he or she is. This is the ascension. This is the transcendence of samsara. So beautifully put by Swami Sridharananda. But it's exactly what you were describing just now, Keith. You start and then you get a sense, you get into relationship with the divine, and ultimately that's what takes over. Quite naturally, not in any manipulative way. Thanks for that. Anyone else? Please.
Brother Shankara?
Yes,
I just want to make a comment about Rajaguna.
Mhm.
People with the Rajaguna is very, very difficult to get into Sattva-guna. Just the realization itself for those folks, it's very hard. They're obsessed with their self-centeredness,
Yes.
right?
This is true of all of us, dear. This is true of all of us.
Exactly.
This is where we start. If we could, there's no sense spending a lot of time thinking about it, but if we let our mind rest on it, we can remember when there was this feeling of I have to take care of number one. I have to, all of that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's simply too small a limitation for a spiritual aspirant. So the Rajoguna that is part of that, very much a part of that, is overcome by practice. And the practice has to be something that we're attracted to. And so we slowly do the practice and get the rewards, get the fruits of that. These are spiritual fruits. I'm not talking about worldly rewards.
Mm-hmm.
And then that begins, as my Grammy used to say, the proof of the pudding is in the eating.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we consume the life of the spirit, the satisfaction grows and grows. So but it is hard. There's no ways about it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? This is good.
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear. So I am.
Listening to one of Swami Sarvapriyananda's talks on Karma Yoga.
Yes.
And, if I understood it correctly, he was saying that there are 3 tiers to the Karma Yoga. First, you detach from the fruits of action.
Mm-hmm.
Then you detach from the action itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, you detach from the doership.
That's a very good construct. Yes. Actually, my sense of it is that it happens more organically than that it's all is kind of happening at once. If you follow Krishna's instructions, and it has to do with this relationship that I was talking about. If you're offering something to the divine person, divine being, slowly and slowly you have this sense of relationship. And that then helps you detach from that through those three levels that you just mentioned, the fruits, then the actions, then doership itself. It's when you begin to get a sense of the vastness of that which you are offering to. And that it becomes just self-evident that that is what is doing. And so then it becomes, there is in a lot of, there's a lot of memes that are built around this little catchphrase, the attitude of gratitude. You begin to have that attitude of gratitude of being glad to participate in this, just being glad to be the witness, the observer, not the doer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Swami Prabha. And Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
Amrapali here.
Oh, Amrapali, so good to see you.
It's thanks to Swami Prabha, she pulled me in.
Good.
Actually, I have been living the attitude of gratitude. And of course, I do have my moments when I get sucked into my rajas gunas.
Yes.
A little too much and get caught up in all these things. But while I was recently sold my house, glad to add, and through all this, I felt that attitude of gratitude, and I felt as if I was carried by God. I was in His arms, and things were happening so miraculously that really, and today again, sitting here with you and again being reminded, I feel very blessed.
Well, very good. And there is great benefit in having this relationship that you have through Swami Sarvadevananda with the divine presence. It's this you're having taken Diksha, things do happen differently, not because God is smiling on us or something like that, but simply because you yourself are changing, and so you behave differently. And so, as Swami Vivekananda says, the macrocosm reflects the microcosm. And so when you have an attitude of gratitude, the blissful love that the saints tell us that universe has for us, that the divine presence has for us, manifests.
But I continue to hugely yo-yo, like, when I'm doing that and things are happening, but I do get confused and have to, like, for things like you said about what is your own duty, things like that become very, like, should I be available for my child, or how much is too much, how much is too less? Should I be physically close to him, or be available in that sense? If I increase my distance from my child, will I be not doing my duty and not being available in that sense? So then there is the gray areas where I get very lost. When is it, how much is me being selfishly looking at what I'm doing, or should I be available? And then it's easier to be, in fact, I feel it's easier to be available to the mass where you are helping other people, because they are more open to your saying where you are.
Welcome to the human condition. Welcome to the human condition. Until we have overcome fear and doubt, we are going to experience fear and doubt. And the only way that we are told to achieve some discrimination and wisdom about these things is through introspection, through prayer, contemplation, concentration, and meditation. When the mind is calm, when the mind becomes calmer, we see more clearly what is the way ahead for us. But will it ever be easy? not until we are fully realized. This is the testimony of the saints. It's a struggle for each of them. In recent times, we all know about Saint Teresa of Calcutta. If you read her diaries, if you read the testimony of the nuns who were close to her, you can see that it was a great struggle for her. It was a great daily struggle. If you read the story of Hildegard of Bingen, another great saint, woman saint. And I recommend you look into both of these. You'll see that this is not, it isn't easy. We didn't get here easily. We're not going to get out easily. Like I say, this business about Scrooge is a wonderful story. And, Swamis have been asked about this, and their answer is that, yes, this kind of thing is possible. What happens to Scrooge is possible, but very rare. And it says, they also then say, well, there has to have been a lot of preparation in what they speak of as another lifetime for something to happen so quickly and so thoroughly. So it's the human condition is that we go through these things. We must be patient and persevering.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Mm-hmm.
So, namaste, Brother Shankara.
Mm-hmm.
So when we experience fear and doubt, can we use that as a learning experience to relinquish ourselves of them at some point?
Well, inevitably it will be a learning experience here. Inevitably it will be a learning experience. This is why we're encouraged, and we'll get to this in some detail in the Gita as we study along, but we can summarize it this way. When you are experiencing fear and doubt, it's good to retreat into that witness frame of reference, that witness way of being, saying, yes, I'm experiencing fear and doubt. This body, mind, intellect is experiencing fear and doubt. Then you look in the witness moment, what is actually happening in this moment? Is there any reason for fear or doubt in this moment? Or is this a projection? Or is this an elaboration of some memory that I have of some similar, some situation that seems similar? If we look at it calmly and clearly, we'll see that it's not similar. We're just making it similar because of our anxiety. So if we look very carefully and even finally fondly at the present moment, we'll see there's probably no reason for fear or doubt in that present moment. So then we see, oh, I'm having this fear, this doubt, because of some projection I'm making or some memory I'm having, some misunderstanding that I'm practicing. And so that witness point of view is so, and it is, of course, a practice to get to that witness point of view. It means you have to practice prayer, contemplation, concentration, meditation. It's in doing that that one develops that witness frame of reference, that witness point of view. Good question.
Thank you. Brother Shankara, may I add something to that?
Yes, please.
I had a personal experience, like another of my miraculous feeling that I felt in the presence of the Almighty, is when you said this, you bring a memory that is similar to that and maybe it is different, but sometimes the same exact situation can have a different result. So we bring our response to the earlier situation to this situation. Just for example, recently my mother, who was in India, she was not feeling well, and during this coronavirus, she said, I need call the equivalent of 911, call that, and I need to go to the doctor because my back is paining, I have a slip disc or something like that. So when my neighbor and friend told me about this, she said, well, you have to take care of this. my first reaction was, now what do I, so that was a messenger of God in a way to bring, she brought it to my attention that something needed to be done. And then my first reaction was, oh, the old age home and all that stuff is something she doesn't agree to. So then I talked to another friend and he said that, why don't you go to the same place you went last time? And I said, no, that will not work because that's a permanent solution. But long story short is, when it was like, I just was more aware. I said, this person has told me this, it needs a little more attention. So I called the same place, which I had earlier tried a couple of years back, and to which my mom had said no. And they had said no because they said it's a long waiting list. When I called them, they said, yes, we have a place available. She can come in for 15 days or a month. And I was so beautiful. I just said, oh my goodness, I would never have thought of doing this unless I got these messengers of God telling me to do it. And it was resolved. My mom is now there. She's staying there till I can get there to be with her.
Very good, very good. This is,
So it was the same situation, but the result was different.
Be careful of the word miraculous. Swami Vivekananda tells us that the power that makes these happen does not come from some external source. It's coming from within us. So something happened that awakened that in you. And so we need to get away from magical thinking. Miraculous, and all those kinds of words are a kind of magical thinking.
It's not random.
Something happens from outside, some outside. No, it's all contained within us. So when Swami Vivekananda says, when you're praying, you're not praying to something outside. You're praying to something within you and asking it to awaken and make its presence felt. And of course, that itself is a grace. And so, we need to beware of words like miracle and miraculous.
Thank you, Brother Shankar.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make one comment for what you said, miraculous.
Yes.
It's actually when we positively think of something, it manifests, whether it's a positive or a negative. Right, Brother Shankara? It manifests into.
Isn't that what Jesus said?
Yes.
It is by your faith that your son was healed. He said to the centurion, It is by your faith, not by anything I did. The centurion came to him or sent a messenger to him, and he said, I have not seen such faith in all Israel. Jesus said. So yes, it is.
It's almost like we activate our divinity within us. We are activating our divine.
We have to remember and remember and remember.
Yeah.
All of this separateness, all of this minniness.
Yeah.
Just a dream. It's just an illusion. There is in fact only oneness. Only oneness. And the seeming is our both our terror and our delight.
Mm-hmm.
But it is something that is, as we'll see when we read chapter 5, mm-hmm. This dream of existence is something that we as the divine person are doing for our own purposes. And Sri Ramakrishna spoke of it as the Divine Mother's sport. The Divine Mother being, by this he meant Kali or Shakti, being completely non-separate from Brahman. Water still, water and waves, same water. Shakti, mother, is water and waves. So that what happens is her sport, is her play of the universe. And it doesn't mean we are pawns in her play. We are that. So we are that which is doing, and we are that which is happening. And we're getting instruction from Krishna on how to slowly adjust our way of assembling the universe, assembling the world, what we believe and what we don't believe in, until we have adjusted it closer and closer and closer over time to the reality. The more we do that, the more we change our behavior because we've changed our beliefs.
Yes, thank you.
There's a wonder in the way we're always free to change the world by changing how we see. That's a lyric from a beautiful song. And so this is, and it is a profound, profound teaching.
Yes.
It is we who change. Then, lo and behold, as Vivekananda points out, universe echoes that. The microcosm is mirrored by the macrocosm. So I can see that Brad has left, or Brahmadas has left. So it is almost 9:15.
Yeah.
So it's time to call it a night, I guess. So good of you all to come. So good to see all of you. And the next class, of course, will be on Saturday morning at 11, where we'll take up another one of Swami Prabhavananda's talks as set down in his book, Realizing God, or the book about him by his disciple, Realizing God. On Sunday, the speaker through Zoom will be Dr. Bhagirath Majmudar, who recently retired from a lifelong career mostly spent at Emory and Grady here in Atlanta. And he's going to speak of from insider knowledge about just what it is that these medical people are doing and what they're sacrificing and how they're offering their lives and just what it's like to actually be them. And then, of course, because that's his frame of reference, he'll relate that to the path of Vedanta. And, so I hope you have a chance to hear Bhagirath. He's really quite a remarkable man and a remarkable personality, and a very good speaker. So we'll close this way. Oh, dearly beloved, a flower at your feet for each one who comes to your open door. A flower at your feet for each one who stands by your open door and says, come to me, offering to break this world's chain that binds us down to ignorance, suffering, and death. A flower at your feet for each one who takes the path that you have struck through this, your jungle world. Oh, Amen. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beings everywhere. Hari Om Tat Sat. So good night, everyone. Again, so good of you to come and participate. See you again soon.
Good
Good
night.
night. See you.
Good night, brother. See you Sunday.
Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga.
Thank you, brother.
Go in protection. All right, dears. So I'm going to hit the little red button here that says end meeting. Good night.
Good night, Brother Shankara.